How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my kitchen, my actual kitchen. And one of the most common things I hear on my Discord whenever I post food to the actual food channel is, wow, I didn't know you could actually cook. Of course I can, that's why it's called Chef Husky. That Discord link is in the description, by the way, you should join it. We've already got 100 members and we host fun tournaments in there for prizes. But anyway, to prove it to you that I can actually cook, I present you a brand new series where I talk about Pokemon I would cook and how I would cook them. Today we're covering one of my favorite Pokemon, Mamoswine. It's a cold weather mammoth slash pig thing with the ability to thick fat. The reason why I chose this one over the several other pig Pokemon we have in the game is because being a cold weather pig, it means we have to have more fat in order to survive. More fat means you're going to be getting some excellent pork belly out of it. So today we're combining two recipes. My favorite food of all time is a breakfast sandwich called pan con chicharron. It generally uses pork rib or belly meat paired up with sweet potatoes and topped with some onions and peppers in a mixture called salsa criolla. Did you also know that Peruvian cuisine, which is the pride of Latin America, actually borrows a lot of its influence from Chinese cuisine? One of the most famous dishes, tallarín saltado, is basically just lo mein with Latin spices. And Peruvian chifa is probably some of the best Chinese food you'll ever have. It's so popular that it's basically its own genre of food there in Peru. So we're making my favorite breakfast sandwich, but I think that food is at its best when we mix cultures. So we'll be combining it with my favorite Chinese pork belly recipe called Dongpo Rou, which is braised pork belly. Once it's finished braising, it comes out as some of the softest meat you could ever have, and it's deliciously juicy. So we start by marinating the pork belly. Here I've got about a 4-pound slab. This piece came with a little bit too much fat, so I'm trimming out what I can't use. Though you do want to keep those fatty bits. I reused some of those to make some delicious pinto beans the next day. We want to chop it up into cubes like this, roughly about 1.5 inches to 2 inches on each side, and keep the skin intact. So once you've got those pieces you want to keep, go ahead and throw them into a gallon Ziploc bag because we're going to marinate it in shoyu butter, which you could probably make with what you have in your fridge. The recipe says use 2 cloves of chopped garlic, but I'm Peruvian, so we're going to use 4. A half tablespoon of ginger. I do have some fresh ginger, but I'm saving that for the next part. For this, just your regular old bottled minced ginger should be absolutely fine. 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 1 tablespoon of Chinese cooking wine, or any cooking wine should be fine. I'm just going for authenticity here. 1 teaspoon of honey, or sugar if that's what you have, a half tablespoon of black pepper, and a half tablespoon of sesame oil. Just toss them all in a gallon bag and leave it there for a minimum 30 minutes or up to about 12 hours. If you can do it the night before, that's the best way to make sure it absorbs all the flavor. If you're at home while this process is happening, just make sure to flip the bag over every 30 minutes so you can make sure that all sides get the flavor. Not required, but if you really care about the people you're cooking for, you'll make the extra effort. And boom, it's been about 4 hours now. I didn't quite have the luxury of the night before, and we're going to throw it on to sear. You want to heat up a pan to be on medium-high. You want to make sure that it's hot before you throw it on because we're not keeping it on very long. You can test this by putting a little bit of water on your hands and throwing a drop in the pan. If it fights back, it's ready. So I'll throw in a little bit of sesame oil, let that get hot, and then throw them on. Don't throw out the marinade because that's still usable. You'll want to sear each side for about 90 seconds and turn it. 90 more seconds and turn it. You want to get all 6 sides of the cube, including the skin side. Then once that's done, take them out. Now we're going to move on to the braising part. On my cutting board, I've got some green onions and ginger. And on the left, I got a big old leek that I took from a local Farfetched. He's marinating for a future video. So I'm peeling off the leaves of the leek, and I'm going to just line the bottom of the pot with it. Then I throw in the ginger and spread it around the bottom there, and then I throw in some green onions over the top, so it should look like this. Now we add in the pork belly pieces. Then to make the liquid, you're going to add a cup of water, but beef stock is better if you've got that. A half cup of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of Chinese cooking wine, a tablespoon of sugar, I'm using rock sugar here, and basically the rest of that marinade from your gallon bag. It's all flavored. You could wrap them up in twine to make sure they hold together, but if you're really careful, this may not even be an issue. Totally up to you. Keep in mind we're not using it for its usual aesthetic look, we're literally just throwing it into a sandwich. The main thing to worry about here is to make sure the pork belly is completely submerged. If it's not, just throw in a little bit more water and maybe some more soy sauce to balance the flavor. You want to keep this on a very low heat. Anything more than a simmer and you might mess it up. At this point, you're only going to open it once every 30 minutes just to turn to pieces. So about 2.5 hours later, we're in the home stretch and we can start prepping the rest of the stuff. I'm going to show you how to make 2 Peruvian salsas. The first one is called salsa criolla, which is essentially raw onions with ají amarillo in a lime, cilantro, and ají panca sauce. This is what you would normally expect to find in a pan con chicharron sandwich. You'll start by very finely chopping the onion so that the pieces come out looking stringy like this. We're going to throw that into an icy salt water bath. What this does is reduce the acidity of the raw onion so you're not getting that super overpowering oniony taste. Let that sit for maybe 10 minutes at most, and while that's going, we're going to start doing the same thing to our peppers. I'm using ají amarillo because that is an authentic and absolutely delicious Peruvian pepper, but if you don't have access to that, some sweet peppers would work just fine. Remember, if a chef ever tells you there's only one right way to do things, walk out. We're going to chop this in a very similar way. Very thin strips. Set those aside because we're going to be using it later. Then just chop up some cilantro, and we're going to throw all of it into the same bowl. Now at this point, you'll splash in about a teaspoon of lime juice. This also helps to get rid of that very overpowering oniony taste. We're going to add in some salt, some black pepper, and a little bit of ají panca. You can find this at most Latin grocery stores, but if you don't have that, you could probably just sub in another pepper paste. I just like this one a lot because not only is it Peruvian, it's also got a very nice combo of sweetness and heat, and adds a very nice color to the sauce. Then finish it off with a little bit of olive oil, and boom, that's a super easy and super quick salsa criolla. But for me, I'm not really a fan of raw onions. For me, a sandwich isn't complete unless it has cheese. So when I'm cooking this for me, instead of salsa criolla, I make something called salsa huancaina, which is a cheese sauce that you can pour right into the top of the sandwich. To do this, you just need to start with some queso fresco. I'm going to be using about a cup of it, so if you have more or less, then just half or double this recipe. So we break up the queso fresco into pieces that'll be easier to blend, and throw it right in the blender. I then take some more of those ají amarillos, but we won't bother chopping them this time, just toss them right in. And I don't know if this is standard, but my aunt always used to throw in a boiled egg yolk for color and texture. Add in a half cup of milk. We can always adjust this if the texture isn't right. Then about a half teaspoon of garlic, or a whole one if you're Peruvian and have no meetings to attend. And then some salt and pepper to taste. Remember, you can always add more salt, you can never take away salt. And so I forgot to record me putting in the olive oil, but you do want to include about 2 tablespoons of that to give the blend some consistency. And then finally, to add a little texture to the sauce, it's pretty common to see some saltine crackers added at this point. But me personally, I don't like adding ingredients unless it's going to significantly add to the flavor, so instead I use cheesy garlic salad croutons for this. Just toss a couple of those in there too. And then just blend it until it's a consistent creamy texture. If it looks like this, it's ready to go. Alright, so our sauces are made, and now there's just one more component for the sandwich, the sweet potatoes. So what I'm going to do here is just chop across diagonally this way to get those longer pieces that could fit better into the type of bread we're using. If you want to cut it into discs, that's fine too. That's the way my mom does it, and it works just as well. But here's the seasoning blend I use. It's equal parts salt, pepper, paprika, and cumin. We'll heat up the pan and then add in some butter. I find that these taste a lot better when cooked in butter, but remember that butter does burn, so you may want to go for a lower heat if you're going to do it this way. And be patient, because this does take a little bit longer. In my opinion, lower heat is also better for sweet potatoes because there is a very short window in which sweet potatoes no longer taste like you're eating bricks, and it burning in the pan. So you want to be checking the color of it very carefully. It will turn a much more yellow color before it starts to burn. You might see these little bubbling bits, and that's okay, we eat those. I really don't know how else to help you with the judgment, but we want it looking somewhat like this. This is just fine. And that's it. That's every component of our sandwich done, and now all we need is the pork. You'll know it's done based on the texture. If it's feeling like you're too scared to lift it because it might entirely fall apart in your hands, it's ready. And now we just have to assemble the sandwich. I went ahead and baked these in the oven just for a few minutes, enough so that the inside will be hot when I cut it open. And when I do that, I'm going to layer in the sweet potatoes at the bottom, and then just smash in your pork as much as you want. If your pieces are too big, you can cut it in half and try to make it work that way, but if you did it right, you should be able to just squeeze it in there. And then just top it off with your sauce of choice. The salsa criolla always ends up looking prettier for Instagram, but the salsa huancaina is the way I grew up eating it, and my preferred way to make it. And there you go, 2 beautiful pan con chicharron sandwiches made with Mamoswine meat, and comboed with one of my favorite Chinese recipes. It is every bit as delicious as it looks. But I never take my own word for it. Instead, let me get my favorite taste tester, Cynthia's opinion on it. And so if you want to dunk it, I also reduce some of the leftover sauce, so that you can do that as well.
I don't think you guys can see it, but
Let me know what you think.
alright, let's try one with all the veggies.
A plus. Nice.
How do you want to give your own grade to it?
Because I already know it is. How does it combo? She's like, shut up, don't talk to me.
I forgot I'm supposed to respond to you. The combo? That was excellent. So the pork belly fell out. So I just tried it as a, just alone. But let me try it.
Good stuff. Nice.
A plus. You're right the first time.
Cool. I figured as much. Alright, so it sounds like we nailed it. Thank you for everyone who stuck around for it, and I hope you like this format. If you did, please leave me a comment or maybe drop me a sub if you haven't already. I'd appreciate that a ton. This one is a lot of fun to make, so if you're into that sort of thing, just let me know. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.